Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. What does Dillian White do next? Where does he go next? He's just returned in this past week as I record this video, facing Christian Hammer. Hammer jacking it in after 3 rounds, retiring on his stool. And not for the first time in the last few fights that he's had. So it was a disappointing ending to that fight for White. So I guess brief comment on that fight. I'm sure White wanted the rounds. He'd been out for some considerable time. And he didn't get them because Christian Hammer jacked it in. So the value in facing Hammer surely diminishing these days with these sorts of performances. And White, yeah, he looked okay. He looked hittable at times though. And I guess the question is, where is he at? Where does he go? Because the reality is, he's a man alone right now. Dillian White has always sort of acted different to a lot of heavyweights in the respect of he's managed his own career and he hasn't tied himself down to a promoter. He had fight-by-fight deals with Matchroom for some years, and obviously he went over, had a title fight at Queensbury. He was on a fight-by-fight deal there, so for one fight. So Dillian White, after he failed that test ahead of what would have been a fight with Anthony Joshua in 2023, you know, he was kind of out on his own. Didn't have any promoters coming to his aid because he wasn't with the promoter. So he wasn't getting the similar sort of promoter finesse and statements that you would usually expect to hear when a fighter fails a test, because he was on his own. All he had to do was say that he was innocent. And more recently, and this is quite interesting because some people have eaten this up, but the whole thing with the Texas Commission coming out saying that the product that Dillian White had that resulted in his failed test, it was something that wasn't disclosed in the product and that he effectively was cleared. And that all happened the week or so it was announced before his comeback fight. A week or so later, he has the fight. So you have to look at that and go, it's a little bit suspicious, because the reality is the fight with Joshua wasn't going to be in Texas. It was in the United Kingdom. We haven't had UKAD, we haven't had the British Boxing Board of Control say that he was cleared. And in this respect, that is what matters. So having an expert in your corner saying, well, actually, it was a substance that shouldn't have been in the product and White's going to take legal action against the company, yada, 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 all the things that have come out. I mean, that's all well and good. But the reality is he can't fight in the United Kingdom right now. And this is why he wasn't fighting in the United Kingdom or hasn't fought in the United Kingdom. This fight was in a different jurisdiction. It was an island in County Mayo. That was outside of the purview of the British Boxing Board of Control. So you have a situation, okay, well, what is going to happen? Where is Dillian White going now? Because he is still a name in the heavyweight division. Albeit, I do think he is somewhat faded from his prime. He's been in a lot of tough fights, and we saw against Tyson Fury, he looked pretty washed. And that was 2 years ago. So he wouldn't have got any better. He has, with his trainer, Buddy McGirt, he's been trying to tighten up his technique and all sorts of other things. But Dillian White is not going to, I think, be the fighter that we've once seen before. I think it will be a case that he will try to leverage the name value for a payday. Because what else has he got right now? Unless he goes off on his own and tries to become his own promotional entity, put it on his own show. But who's going to back him, put up all the money for that? Is it going to be himself? And who would he be fighting? It probably wouldn't be someone that we'd be wanting to see. He doesn't really have any leverage right now. He doesn't have a belt. He's not with a big promoter. So it becomes infinitely harder for him to move around and sort of create that sort of self-promotion type deal if he wanted to go that route. I think the reality is, if he returns, it will be as a B-side, but I'm sure that will be a little bit of a bruise to his ego if he has to do that. I'm sure he wants to be in big fights, even if that is as a B-side, to be in the biggest fights. But the reality is we haven't really got a lot of form for Dillian White, and what we do have was another failed test in 2023. And the reality is White has failed drug tests before. famously against Oscar Rivas. He was allowed to fight, and earlier in his career he had to serve a ban because there was a substance that was in a supplement that he took. And I think the other thing, even with this explanation for this most recent failed test from the expert from the Texas Commission, it's still a strict liability system. So what they are saying is that Dillian White did fail the test, that it was a failed sample, and in a strict liability system, often that's not a good thing. So we have to wait and hear what the British Boxing Board of Control and UCAD is going to say about all this matter related to that failed test ahead of what would have been a fight, about 8 months ago now. So Dillian White, where does he go? Is he going to get on the Saudi train? Is he going to get a second chance? And I guess a third chance at this point. I guess the thing is, boxing fans have a short memory, and the sport as a whole can be quite forgiving, especially where it comes to performance-enhancing substances. There's outrage for a little while, and things die down. I think one of the things that he did well that Conor Benn did not do well is he shut his mouth. He didn't say anything. He didn't go the opposite way and try to profess his innocence with all sorts of shenanigans as Ben did. White was quiet, and ahead of what was going to be his comeback fight, there were some things come out where, with Texas Commission, where he allegedly holds a license, they said that it was in a supplement and it wasn't disclosed in the product, so it wasn't his fault. But I would also say to that, with millions and millions of dollars on the line for an Anthony Joshua fight, would you not, as an athlete in Dillian White, who had millions of dollars himself at that time, be testing everything and making sure whatever you're putting into your system is clean, especially if it's some over-the-counter product? You know, there's got to be some blame on Dillian White for failing that test, in my view. But regardless, if you stick a pin in that what next is interesting. Where do you think he goes? What is he going to do? How's he going to maneuver? And when he gets there, whatever that thing is that he ends up doing and fighting, is he going to be any good? I think the reality is he was looking washed against Tyson Fury a couple of years ago. He didn't exactly look stellar against Jermaine Franklin. I mean, arguably the two fights against Franklin, between Joshua and Franklin and White and Franklin, White looked significantly worse. Some people thought that Dillian White lost that fight. So, yeah, I kind of think diminishing returns in terms of performance, but he does have a name. So he can still generate some interest, and he's still got some fans. So that's going to lead somewhere at some point. Maybe not in the next couple of months. Maybe it'll be 6 months down the track. We'll have to see. But he'll turn up somewhere. Would it shock me if it was Saudi Arabia? No. I mean, we saw Jarrell Miller turn up there, and his transgressions in terms of the performance-enhancing drug space, well known. So Dillian White probably, if the Turkey El Sheikh is looking to put him into something, it could potentially happen. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter. Boxing_squared. I'm out.